My name is Lisa Howell, and I'm on the unceded, unsurrendered territories of the Anishinaabe Nation here in Ottawa. And I'm with Michelle McKay. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Lisa.
And we're really excited to have you here with us today. So I wondered if you just start with telling us, where you're located and what your current role is.
Thanks, Lisa. So as Lisa just mentioned, my name is Michelle McKay. I use she, her pronouns. I'm currently located on Treaty 18 territory and currently working for the Peel District School Board as a educator or teacher. My background is in the early years. So my last classroom role was in kindergarten. And I'm currently working as an ASD itinerant in the special education department or student learning support services. I'm also a PhD candidate at Boise U of T in curriculum pedagogy. And my research is researching how kindergarten educators engage in teaching and learning about truth and reconciliation with kindergarten students.
I wondered if you could talk a little bit about, what you learned from your research and also your practice, maybe about the capacity that younger children have to understand issues of social justice, equity, and fairness.
I think for me, the largest kind of point was taking what I had done in the classroom and then bridging it with what the research said around how we construct our notions of childhood, and really looking at the construct of childhood overall and interrogating the notion of developmentally appropriate practices or making decisions as educators about what is or is not appropriate at certain times based on a child's age or developmental stage. I think that notion of they're too young or the educator is the one that ultimately makes that decision without consultation or conversation with anyone else is a very kind of Eurocentric way of looking at teaching and learning and the power and privilege that I hold as an educator. So I think everything has showed me that they are capable. Kindergarten is not too young. And I always tell people when you read the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, specifically calls 62 and 63 that are linked to education, it starts in kindergarten. They don't say beginning in grade 1, it's starting in kindergarten. So I think for me, that moral imperative of responding to those calls to action as an educator implicated in our education system was important to me. And then aligning that with the views that are outlined in our kindergarten program document about social justice work, about equity work. So engaging in these conversations was something that we did do. We invited families into this conversation with us. We had the conversation with children, administrators, other educators in the school environment. So we really took a community perspective instead of us just deciding whether we were or were not going to do this. We looked at it a lot from a more holistic perspective, I would say, for sure.
What do your students think about Spirit Bear?
So I think that they were very quick to catch on to it. It was really accessible for 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, and it allowed them to be able to conceptualize some of those concepts that might be a little bit more abstract. So I think in a lot of the work that we were doing and a lot of my research, when I speak with other educators, one of the challenges is kind of taking these terms or concepts that many adults even struggle with and making them accessible to young children. And so I think the Spirit Bear resources, the books, the videos, it allows it to be accessible in a different sort of way for our young children. I think that also one of the challenges that Spirit Bear kind of helps with is not enough resources. A lot of the resources or supports will lump in like kindergarten with like 1 to 12 or 1 to 8 or something like that. And kindergarten is a completely different program document than our 1 to 8 or 1 to 12 curriculum documents. So I think that's where Spirit Bear has those early childhood resources. I think the Spirit Bear resources are a great place to start and do support our early learners through that process.
And I'm really curious now to know what some of those experiences that you had with kindergarten students and the calls to action and Spirit Bear, what some of those experience were like.
It was right around, obviously, COVID, March 2020.
Yeah.
It was right around Have a Heart Day. So for February 14th, again, we had to be engaging these conversations. Students wanted to really begin we'd been doing this learning since September. We were really kind of at the point where they were starting to take action and wanting to create that change in their community. So for Valentine's Day in our class, we recognize it as Have a Heart Day. And students, we did some teaching and learning around that, and they had colored the cards that are on the Spirit Bear website and decided that they wanted to send them to Justin Trudeau. So we colored the card, we'd done the teaching and learning, they colored the cards, they wrote their letters, we put them in the mailbox, we took a walk to the mailbox, mailed them. They were so proud of themselves. And then we got back to the classroom, and I had a student say to me, she said, well, what else can we do? Like, we wrote letters, but is there like, what next? Kind of like, she was like, that's not enough. And so I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, well, it's not just him. And she was referring to Justin Trudeau that creates change, or members of parliament. And I said, okay. And she said, everybody needs to know. So I said, okay, well, what's the plan? What are we going to do? And again, engaging in this in a very inquiry-based kind of learning fashion, and being responsive to what the students were telling us. So they decided that not only could we write letters, but many more people, they thought, watch videos. So I said, okay, so what they did was we took our letter that we wrote and we filmed the students reading like line by line or sentence by sentence. And then I said, okay, we made this video. What are we going to do? So we want to share it out. And they knew that we were sharing our learning daily on Twitter. We want to share it out. So I think that's when I first really became like, I was aware of Spirit Bear. We were using the resources, but I think that's the first time I connected directly, because I tweeted out the video and I just started tagging, like I tagged Cindy Blackstock. I was like, I don't know, like I'll just start tagging people and let's see where this goes. And it got quite a bit of good traction. We had a lot of feedback as well on social media from other people that had maybe other opinions about the work that we were doing, but we had a lot of positive impact. And what I realized is when I transitioned into my role at the school board, there were a bunch of schools that were like, we saw the work that you were doing with the students, or the students were doing in your classroom. Can you talk to us about that? And what I realized was those tweets had a much larger impact than we had ever initially realized. And that was because of the children and students. And that's where I come back to the capabilities and competencies of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds to do this work, because without them, these things wouldn't have happened. That video was not a pre-planned lesson. It was an authentic response to a moment that happened in our lives together. And so I thought it was just a beautiful kind of natural involvement, and very impactful for also other educators to think about how they could start this work.
So there's lots of incredible things that come from this work, but we know that there's many educators who want to be involved in the work, that have made commitments to the calls to action, specifically 62 and 63, but just don't know where to start. Or I guess my question for you is, in your experiences, what might some of those limitations be, and what might educators do so that instead of stopping them from doing the work, that they can move forward in the work?
A lot of educators that I've met, including myself, are sometimes unsure of how to take that first step, especially if you grew up or were educated within Ontario or within Canada, and are now teaching. Our education and the learning that we did of history is incomplete and inaccurate, which leaves some people feeling kind of frozen or unable to take that first step because they feel like they don't know enough or are afraid to make a mistake. I think committing to the learning and unlearning that we need to do as adults throughout this process is critical. And it does take effort on your part. But it can be something like starting by reading a book or attending a webinar. It doesn't need to be a huge commitment to learning everything all at once. It just needs to be a step in the right direction, I think, to start. Through that process, what I found, and in conversation with others, it's critical to have that support network. So when we think about engaging in new learning and taking those learning risks, we need to also think about self-regulation and our ability to grow and push ourselves as educators. So being able to speak with someone or co-regulate or brainstorm through kind of how am I going to move from that like flight, fright, or freeze part of it, and being paralyzed and not being able to move forward. So just not taking that first step, to being able to really feel comfortable, to be able to take that first step, engage in learning, try something with your students small, so that you can build on that success. I know I've heard from a lot of educators, they'll turn to colleagues in their school if they don't have those people that are doing that work in their school environment, turning to their boards, like Indigenous equity teacher or Indigenous lead. There's different names at every school board, but reaching out to them. I think that's where doing this work, this learning, this teaching in community with other educators is critical. So I always say to reach out to people on social media, right? Try and make those connections. I think asking questions is also key, to make sure that we're doing this work, and developing those relationships with local Indigenous people, with knowledge keepers, with elders. It is not their responsibility to teach us and kind of make up for our lack of learning. The onus is not on them to bring us into this work. We can definitely develop those relationships, and learn from them in a very respectful and reciprocal way. But I think it's important for us to commit to doing this work.
You've given a lot of guidance and advice in that, in what you've just said, but is there anything else you think that maybe might help guide teachers, specifically teachers who are working with the early years?
I think if we invite children and families into this journey with us, beginning in kindergarten, and we continue to evolve over time, like how far we could get in regards to truth and reconciliation by the time we leave. So just if we can begin to plant those seeds, like imagine the garden that would come by the time they go, and what impact we could make towards really working towards those calls to action in a meaningful way. So I think just take that step, because we never, like, the impact can be so great.
That's a beautiful visualization too of a garden of like fairness and equity and kindness, growing each year, right? Yeah. Thanks so much, Michelle, for sharing your insights from your teaching practice and your experiences with your incredible students, and also from your PhD research. We're really excited to see where you'll go.
Thank you, Lisa. I've really enjoyed sharing and speaking with you about this amazing, incredible journey that we've been involved in.
Thank you.
And show you my reality, how hard it's been to be a youth, all alone with plans to dream. I want the world to treat me fair, I deserve a chance to see a place to be, more eager rights, and have my family close to me. Then you came and heard my voice, you made us loud and now I can't avoid. We have a heart, we have a dream, nothing less nears us. So we sing the spirit there, we sing the spirit there. So we sing the spirit there, we sing the spirit there. So we wanna see a world can share a love we know is there, and sing the spirit there.
I'm about to be brave and to never trust fear. I want to feel safe and I want you all here. We came to celebrate in the name of Spirit Bear. We want you all to listen and the mission is to care. All the children want to share and they really need to change, cause history has shown that we're not treated the same. Believe there is a place where the teaching will be made. Find spirit in your heart when you're speaking on his name.
It's sad what we've been through, enraged by injustice. It's time that we show you how strong our love is. I have determination, fight for more fairness, stand as a nation, and join us in caring.
We are strong, we are proud, learn to love and love loud. Please don't fight, find our light for equal rights.
So sing the spirit.